Hello, my name is Bird Running Water, and I belong to the Cheyenne and Mescalero Apache Nations. I'm honored to be welcoming you to our reimagined Sundance Film Festival, coming from the indigenous lands of North America. I'd like to pay a special tribute to the Ute Tribal Nation, the Lenni Lenape Nation, and the Tongva people. We thank them all for giving Sundance Institute our homes. I would also like to honor the indigenous lands and people from where you are joining us. Please enjoy the show. Ihehet Ahanaka.
Good evening. I'm Clark Weens, co-founder and president of the Circle Cinema Board. Welcome to Circle Cinema and to the Admiral Twin Drive-In, who have something in common. They were both featured in the Tulsa's film of The Outsiders. Welcome also to Sundance Film Festival 2021, hosted by your Circle Cinema, Tulsa's non-profit theater. We thank you always for your attendance, especially during the pandemic. Your safety comes first. Circle Cinema opened in 1928, 93 years old, and is looking forward to its 100th birthday. Community conscious through film, the Circle motto, is well supported by the independent films that the Sundance Film Festival brings to the world. Having the festival here in Tulsa helps to complete that circle. Historically, Circle Cinema has worked with many other nonprofit organizations to bring awareness to their mission and to work with them to make Tulsa a better place to live. In keeping with that tradition, Circle Cinema is donating 100% of proceeds from the Sundance General Admission tickets to the 1921 Race Massacre Centennial Commission, and will work with them to facilitate actions, activities, and events that commemorate and educate all citizens. Thanks again for all your support in keeping the Circle part of Tulsa's culture now and in the future.
Welcome to Tulsa, mother of the Mother Road. Tulsa is home to one-of-a-kind experiences, a legendary music scene, and an unsurpassed love of the arts. A dynamic city, known for a variety of thriving urban districts, including a little-known district that is the epicenter of one of the nation's greatest triumphs and tragedies. Let's rewind.
Greenwood is the historic African-American community. It was dubbed Black Wall Street, but the Greenwood district was really much more like a Black Main Street. You would find beauty salons and barbershops, movie theaters, garages, dance halls, restaurants, grocery stores, haberdasheries, furriers, pharmacies. You'd find a bunch of professionals, doctors, lawyers, dentists, accountants, pharmacists, etc. So it was not a financial or investment capital. It was much more of a small business and entrepreneurial capital. The reason the Greenwood community existed in the first place as a business community was because segregation existed. There wasn't the opportunity to engage with the larger economy, so we created an insular economy over here in the Greenwood district. It was renowned for at least two things. One is the incredible economic success and entrepreneurialism that existed in the district, but also it's the site of the worst of the so-called race riots in American history, the massacre in 1921. So it's important to understand the national context for what happened here in Tulsa. For example, in the summer and fall of 1919, it was called Red Summer. Red's a metaphorical reference for the blood that flowed in the streets from all this violence in New York and Baltimore and Memphis and Chicago and Elaine, Arkansas and Longview, Texas, on and on and on. So the context is one of an anti-Black sentiment in the nation. Now, there was a trigger incident that people are generally familiar with, an incident that happened on an elevator. Dick Rowland, 19-year-old Black boy who shined shoes downtown. Dick Rowland walked over from his shoe shine site, entered the Drexel building, boarded the elevator. The elevator was being operated manually by a young white girl named Sarah Page, who was 17 years old. Something happened on the elevator that caused the elevator to jerk, and Dick Rowland bumped into Sarah Page. Sarah Page began to scream. She told her story about being assaulted on the elevator, a story that she would later recant. She would actually refuse to cooperate with prosecutors after Dick Rowland was arrested for this alleged assault. The next day, which would have been May 31st, 1921, the Tribune published an article entitled "Nabbed Negro for Attacking Girl in an Elevator." It was a false narrative. A large white mob began to gather on the lawn of the courthouse. Dick Rowland, again, was being held in jail atop the courthouse. A small group of black men, several dozen in number, marched down to the courthouse, intent on protecting Dick Rowland from what they thought might be a certain death. Some of the men in the black group had weapons. Some of them were veterans of World War I, so they knew how to use those weapons. Words were exchanged. A white man tried to seize the gun that a black man was holding. The gun discharged. And in the words of one of the massacre survivors, all hell broke loose from that point on. The violence lasted roughly 16 hours. It was devastating. The large white mob spilled over the Frisco tracks and into the Greenwood community, burning and looting and shooting their way through the community. We know that at least 1,250 homes in the black community were destroyed. When all is said and done, we know that some 100 to 300 people lost their lives, most of them black. Property damage, conservatively estimated at the time, was $1.5 to $2 million. That's well over $25 million. Many folks in the black community were taken to these internment centers or these encampments, ostensibly for their own protection, but it really left the Greenwood community defenseless, and it was looted and burned in their absence. Absolutely, airplanes were used. There are credible eyewitnesses, written and oral testimonies that say these planes were dropping some sort of incendiary devices. Some say nitroglycerin, some say kerosene, that really caused the flames to spread more rapidly. The other thing that is virtually undisputed that was happening from at least one of the planes is that someone on at least one of those planes was strafing the community with bullets. Many black families spent days, weeks, and months living in tent cities set up on the charred earth that was the result of the massacre. It's important for people to understand that the Greenwood District didn't cease to exist in 1921, although some people probably would have liked for it to just sort of go away. It was in fact rebuilt bigger and better than it ever was. The story really is about the human spirit. It's about resilience, and it's about the ability of people to say to the larger community, we shall not be moved. This is our community. We're not going anywhere.
My name is Yvette Troop.
I'm Guy Troop, part owner and CEO of the Black Wall Street Liquid Lounge.
Black Wall Street Liquid Lounge has been open since about the second week of January.
The Black Wall Street Liquid Lounge represents sort of the collective of the community.
Both of our families have a history of entrepreneurs.
My Aunt Lucille and her husband moved to Tulsa in the 40s. She was a beautician and an entertainer, and she took on Madam C.J. Walker's franchise. First, she started as the principal of the school and ultimately built Troop's Beauty College, where she taught the majority of the beauticians from the 40s to the late 70s. We like to say we're more than a coffee shop. We're really trying to revitalize entrepreneurs in the city.
We want to empower our youth and others to really reach their potential and rebirth what was here. And it's so important for youth to see people that look like them. That's the validation. That lets you know this is possible. We are not at a loss for intellectual capital, for creativity. We have tons of that in our community. People need to have, tools, a blueprint, a framework, mentors, sponsorship. Those are things that people in our community have not had. And so if they're provided with those tools, then they will prosper.
Our strategy is to develop our little piece, but help people do what O.W. Gurley and with J.B. Stratford and with Lula Williams and all of those iconic figures, how they thought. You have oranges, you have lemons, let's make some fruity drinks together.
My name is Venita Cooper, and I'm the owner and founder of Silhouette Sneakers and Art. We've been open since November 1st of last year. Whenever I moved here, the first things that I heard about were just like conflict around the development of the area, around like what should Greenwood look like in the future, what should it be right now, that kind of thing. I'm at a very advanced stage in life to be learning about it, which is very disappointing because I went to high school in Oklahoma, and And even though I took Oklahoma history, I never learned about Black Wall Street or Greenwood. So it's been a crash course for me, for sure. And part of that is that I get so many people who come into the store who are from Tulsa and, you know, are a product of the generations that lived during the massacre, and they want to tell those stories. And then the other side is that, you know, people come to me and they want to know more. Like, they come to me to learn lessons about the massacre and about what happened after. And so I've just had to be really informed. I love sneakers, for sure. You know, it's a passion of mine. But, you know, I was an educator before that, and I've always had this desire to help community. When I was making the decision to open up a store, I actually had the opportunity to be in a space with a lot more foot traffic. It was more important to start a business in a historically significant area and to try to have a voice in the conversation around, like, what happens to this area moving forward. The spirit of Greenwood is really what's most important. The fact that we can look back at a legacy of excellence in entrepreneurship, and despite all the obstacles that we may have to overcome in our lives, look to that as a means of gaining strength. The fact that Greenwood still stands despite so many attempts by local, federal government, different policies that have undermined this community, that's like the spirit of Greenwood, and it's important that it be here as something for us to look to.
So the Centennial Commission was formed in 2015. At that time, we were 6 years away from what would be the 100th anniversary. In looking at where we are in Oklahoma, the language that was used around the anniversary of the Murrah Federal Building in Oklahoma City is that many would say, you know, one of the worst acts of domestic terrorism, the bombing. So Senator Matthews and those would say, well, you do know that about 100 years ago, the worst case of Americans dropping bombs on their fellow Americans took place in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And that got the conversations going. What are we as a city, as a community, as a state, as a nation going to have to show for what has taken place over 100 years since 1921? And that's really what led to what we have today in what will be the History Center, which is called Greenwood Rising. It's an 11,000 square foot facility. It's going to be a narrative museum experience. Where it's being built is at the corner of Greenwood and Archer. That is historically the gateway to what was Black Wall Street. That's going to tell the story of Greenwood, pre-statehood, how African Americans got their wealth, how did this place come to be, the actual massacre itself, and then an education on the fact that this community rebuilt itself bigger and better than it was even in 1921, what many people don't know. And then to discuss the second decline. What caused, you know, if this was such a wonderful place, what happened? We talk about that. And that all that leads to the journey to reconciliation. An actual space, an amphitheater style space where individuals, after learning this history, can come and sit down and have difficult discussions around race. We would not be here if it had not been for the efforts of John Hope Franklin Center for Reconciliation. They've been doing this work now for 10 plus years. The Greenwood Cultural Center. They began this back in the 90s when they built the 1921 Tulsa Race Massacre Memorial. There has been small pockets of racial discussion, but not on a large enough, wide enough scale. And as we see across our country, Greenwood Rising is needed right now.
Part of the problem with our lack of progress as a country around this issue is that we're really struggling to come together.
It resonates because of our own ignorance. And we are ignorant because some people have made deliberate decisions to excise this stuff from the curriculum.
Not everything that is faced can be changed, but nothing can be changed until it is faced.
Like the Black Lives Matter mural in the street, that's a dialogue. We believe that dialogue is critically important.
Because that's how you grow. That's how you overcome obstacles.
Where do we go from a George Floyd situation in a community like Tulsa still grappling with a Terrence Crutcher shooting?
We have a movement called Black Lives Matter. We have mass incarceration. We have all manner of race-based problems because we've not adequately grappled with our past.
There are still some pockets of America, there's some pockets of this system that needs to be addressed.
This feels like a very important time in our history, a time that may or may not return.
All this stuff is about shared humanity.
Until I start changing how you think of me, how I think of you, that's the only time that we're going to really see a beginning of a journey.
But the next step is action. It's engagement.
You have to come in and you have to ask for the Breonna Taylor. We want to say her name. We want to keep her alive.
Individual change at the collective level really does make a difference.
People are looking to the past almost for answers for how we sort of move forward.
LeBron James production companies, he's actually doing a documentary. Russell Westbrook, John Legend, Damon Lindelof, executive producer of HBO Watchmen.
It's drawing attention quite literally from all over the world. So it's a great opportunity for us in Tulsa to connect the dots, to make sure people understand that if we don't tend to those historical wounds, we'll never achieve this sort of one America unity that we all claim that we want.
Though we have a long history, we have such a much longer future.
That could be triumphant, that this history led to people being able to have discussion and dialogue and heal from it and address some of the current ills of our nation.
Imperfect, growing, striving, changing. All words that would accurately describe our great city. Now more than ever, we believe Tulsans can be an example of how to confront our past while embracing our future. Because the people are what make us special. And no matter what part of the city you visit and who you run into, you'll probably hear the same three words. Welcome to Tulsa.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for watching the screening of the short documentary, Welcome to Tulsa, by filmmaker and super talented individual, Trey Thaxton. If you're tuning in from Tulsa, from Oklahoma, or from somewhere much further away, really thank you and welcome to Tulsa. We're glad to welcome Sundance here and really excited to showcase this extremely exciting opportunity to talk about some very special people and some very special thoughts on the place that we love and call home. So the screening of Welcome to Tulsa and this panel was hosted by our FMAC office, that is the Film, Music, and Culture office here in Tulsa, through our Visit Tulsa office. And we're excited to have a conversation really centered on these exciting individuals, and specifically thank you to the Sundance Film Festival and to Circle Cinema for being pioneers in this space and giving us the platform. I'm Brandon Oldham. I'm going to be your moderator today. I'm Tulsa's native son. Really excited about the opportunity to intro you to the place that not only do I call home, but the place that my family has called home for generations. So with that, I'd love to introduce you to our panelists today. Joining me is Coop, owner of Silhouette Sneakers and Art in the Greenwood district. Phil Armstrong, project director for the 1921 Tulsa Race Massacre Centennial Commission. And last but not least, the Welcome to Tulsa creator, director, owner of Goldmill Company, and really visionary behind what is Greenwood Ave, as you see there on his jacket, Mr. Trey Thaxton. Could we give a round of applause just for you guys? Just go ahead.
Yes.
So with that, we'll dive right in. Trey, we just got the opportunity to see a phenomenal film that you curated and pulled together. And we want to start with you as the man who's typically behind the camera. We really appreciate you jumping in front of the camera today to talk about this. But could you tell us a little bit more about your thought process as you pulled together this documentary?
Yeah, well, first, definitely honored to be in the Zoom where it happens with these beautiful chocolate faces. It's definitely an honor. It's odd that we're actually doing a panel now because that's where this whole project started, it was supposed to be a panel with Phil and Coop and some business owners and just really, and stakeholders in the community to talk about what was going on in the world. And because of the pandemic, we had to break that up. So because of timing and budget issues, it got shrunk down and really became what it was. Even the reason it's called Welcome to Tulsa was because it was supposed to be this kind of overall view of the whole city with tourism and other places. And then Greenwood was only a small portion of it, but it honestly, it's kind of a amalgamation of like what was happening last year in 2020, which we know was bananas for so many different reasons. But this really, the story of Greenwood, the story of Black Wall Street, the story of white mobs wreaking havoc on our nation, it's happening right now. So the story of Greenwood is so relevant in 2020 and 2021.
Nice. Thank you. We all definitely navigated 2020 and are excited to welcome 2021, and somewhat surprised that there's a little bit of overlap, but we're navigating accordingly. And so, Coop, we'll go directly to you here. You know, within the film, we hear and see that you're continuing this long legacy of just Greenwood legends. You know, you're on a mural here in Tulsa. What does it feel like, you know, to be continuing that legacy and really picking up that torch?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, let's go Tulsa. Come on. Come on.
Yes.
Love the city. It's funny, someone asked me the other day, as I've lived in like at least a dozen different places. My dad was in the military, we traveled a lot, and for the first time in a long time, someone was like, you know, what's your favorite place that you've ever been or lived? And I was like, wow, it's Tulsa, actually. You know, like I love the community here. I mean, it is a blessing. I feel overwhelming gratitude literally every day that I wake up as the owner of Silhouette Sneakers and Art here on Greenwood. You know, being able to pursue my passion, which turns out is about bringing community together, has been the fact that I can like realize that, and the fact that you know, the community engages with me in the way that it does. I don't know, I've always felt like, you know, if the massacre didn't happen, if urban renewal didn't happen, if, you know, this community here on Greenwood was able to continue to thrive kind of organically, if there was a natural progression, that Silhouette would have already existed. And so I feel like this is just, you know, a continuation of that legacy. I feel a tremendous amount of responsibility and inspiration from that history. I don't feel sadness. I don't feel pity. I don't think that that's what our ancestors would have wanted. I don't think that is what drove them to achieve the things that they achieved. I'm inspired by the stories that I hear from the entrepreneurs of, you know, one of the most, if not the most successful Black economic and cultural hub in the country. You can see behind me, so we were able to custom build out this space, and behind me, I've got this brick wall, and, you know, we put this in here. And the reason that we have this feature is as an homage to those businesses. And, you know, it's important to me. And I feel like the future can only, the present and the future can only reach its potential if it is rooted in history. If we are taking the lessons from the people before us, the trailblazers before us, and applying them. And so I'm literally, even through a pandemic, I can't even tell you like the amount of just like happiness and joy that I feel to be able to, you know, try to continue on the legacy here in Tulsa in this moment in time. I feel totally honored.
Yeah, you carry your well, Coop.
Very, very, very powerful there.
Thank you.
I'm proud of you.
It's just so fitting, you know, the way that you said that, because if, you know, you said had the massacre not occurred, Silhouette would probably already exist, you know, because of the trajectory.
Absolutely.
And you're in a space where a shoe shop was pre-massacre.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's nuts. I didn't actually even realize, I knew the Greer shoe shop existed, but I didn't realize that it was actually here. until a journalist, actually, a reporter, told me about this placard in front of our shop. I can't believe I missed it, but literally every day I walk into the store and I walk past that. And so, you know, the history is everywhere. It's a beautiful time to be in Tulsa right now because, you know, it's a city that is finally acknowledging, you know, different aspects of that history. And hopefully we come to a point where we can fully engage in dialogue and really appreciate the nuances of that history. I do have one other thing to share. I know I gotta, you know, stop talking for Phil, but you know, when President Trump came down to Tulsa, you know, during the pandemic, there was a lot of fear and a lot of anxiety in the Black community, and you know, even outside the Black community, just with people who, there was a lot of fear that violence and chaos was going to happen. And you know, I was nervous too. I remember, you know, one of the days that he was down here, I actually removed all of my inventory because, you know, that was the time of the George Floyd protests, and, you know, there were a lot of sneaker stores that were getting looted, and I didn't want that to happen down here. I felt like we were such a symbol of Black prosperity down here on Black Wall Street. But recently I thought to myself, as I've been learning about our ancestors, like, they probably dealt with that fear on a daily basis. You know, like, I dealt with it for maybe on Juneteenth and, you know, during the Trump rally, but like literally every day, their lives were at risk, were being threatened. And so, I mean, I can't help but to feel a great appreciation and respect, and feel incredibly motivated to continue on that legacy. They really paved the way for us.
Yes, I really appreciate the sentiment there and the nod. And one thing I would just add to that just gives me chills is they felt that, and yet they progressed.
And yet they progressed.
Just super powerful. Phil, with that, the spirit moving us here in the conversation, what can Tulsans and visitors expect this year? You know, and really not only this year, but in these moments, you know, as we honor this history and this legacy, you know, because the Centennial Commission has been in existence and thinking about this for, you know, what is that, since 2015? So all of that pathway leading up to this, can you tell us about what that will look like?
So, you know, first of all, just being on this call, and for whoever around the country, or even in Tulsa, or for wherever you may be viewing this, what you see, 4 African Americans in this space, exhibiting or receiving the torch to move forward with what we refer to as Black excellence, as the Black Wall Street mindset. This is a representation of that, that we have creative, excellent professional mindsets that was established and founded here over 100 years ago. And to see that that spirit still not only here, but that it's finding a new wave of resurgence, and how, you know, even as you find out, you know, Venita Cooper, you know, her space being where a shoe shop used to be. It's almost as if the ancestors are speaking to us, telling us, you know, cheering us on to say, you know, bring back some semblance of what used to be there. Let people know what used to be there and never let it die. So, you know, sitting here, I got chills just being on this call and knowing what's coming in 2021. The main focus, it's taken us a while to get here. The Centennial Commission started in 2015. We had to establish trust. You have to understand, this is a community that continually, for years, had what you call promises made, promises broken, promises made, promises broken, and always having that moment of it looks like someone's going to do something and then it fade away. So the first thing we had to do is establish credibility. And that is a long journey, not only with the Black citizens of Greenwood and North Tulsa, but with white citizens as well, that this journey to reconciliation requires both. But first of all, it requires truth telling. Our motivation and our quote comes from James Baldwin, the playwright, the writer, and that quote is, "Not everything that is faced can be changed, but nothing can be changed until it is faced." So we had to face this. This was a rough, horrific tragedy that we had to face together as citizens before we can move forward. And the result of that, the 5 years that it's taken to working with the community, has brought us to this point where we're building Greenwood Rising, a world-class facility where people will come here to learn the history, to understand what led to it, but more so to see the history of an entire community. And that 2021 is not a kumbaya, we've held hands, okay, we're getting along, everybody go back to their respective corners. 2021 is just the beginning. It's just the launching pad of what I believe, a 3, 5, 10, 15, 20-year trajectory where people will stop and say, something happened to race relations, to reconciliation in this country, and it began, that demarcation began in a place called Tulsa, specifically Greenwood, with the way this community has come together. And I think we're going to be a model for the nation and for the world. What happens when you do this difficult work and people come together? So people are going to come here and be inspired. We're going to teach and educate things that people did not learn when they were growing up here. We're going to educate that Black Wall Street is not necessarily a geographic location, but it's a state of mind. And when they get here, they'll be able to just get off the charter bus or get off of their family and come here, and within walking distance, see Greenwood Rising. Go across the street and see the historic Greenwood Chamber buildings. Go right up the street and see historic Vernon AME Church, the last surviving structure that's still here. Walk across the street and see the 1921 memorial that's established in 1995, there at the Greenwood Culture Center. Walk across the campus and go to the John Hope Franklin Park that was established this year, as you saw in the video. John Hope Franklin Park, now on the Civil Rights Network, and then the Pathway to Hope. And all of this in this historic area, it will be a motivation for people to say, look what was, but look what is happening again. What once was will be again. And you're seeing some of that right here on this phone, on this Zoom call. The insular economy of the African-American communities, especially in Greenwood, because of Jim Crow and segregation, you know, the Black dollar rotated several times because of that. But the secret is that we supported one another. We helped one another. We got together. We lent money to each other. We supported our businesses. So I can't do that unless I'm doing the same thing and modeling that. And that's why I'm so proud to showcase my jacket here that I bought at Venita Cooper's shop, and that was designed by Mr. Trey, Greenwood 1921. When I wear this, and on the back it says Black Wall Street, Tulsa, Oklahoma. People want to know where I got the jacket. And I say, you go down to Greenwood and you visit Venita Cooper, tell her Phil sent you, and pick up a jacket and support that business. I went back and bought one from my wife, and tell everybody, white and Black, come to Greenwood and support Greenwood businesses. That's how that rejuvenation comes back, is that you continue to tell people, come to Greenwood, spend your money, spend some time, get educated, get enlightened, and then leave here changed, and go do that in your own communities.
I love that. Thank you, Phil. Can we pass that collection plate? Is there a virtual collection? That was absolutely great. And I look forward not only to showcasing that to Tulsans, but also giving Tulsans the opportunity to showcase what they've been through, their history, and our community to the world at large, as people really do come here to Tulsa to learn and see this history. Really, as we dive into this next kind of area of the panel, I'd love to hear from you all. Coop kind of mentioned 2020. We've been thinking a lot about 2021 as it's so fresh. What has the journey been like to 2021? Starting with you, Trey. I know you've done quite a bit with your own business as well as some storytelling. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I know it's different for everybody, and I would be ignorant to say, I mean, we're not monolithic, just in the Black community and people in general. And I know the Greenwood story is not monolithic as well. There are a lot of different people and vantage points and descendants and transplants. So I would be, again, ignorant to say it from one perspective, but from the people that I've been able to interact with and talk to, that spirit is still alive. Just as Phil alluded to, the spirit is alive, and it's not going to look like it did, but I think it can really look better. And it's going to take us, like Phil mentioned, telling the truth. And as a storyteller and a designer, as a Tulsan for 20 plus years, I moved here when I was 12 years old. And again, went to high school here, went to college here, never heard about Black Wall Street, never heard about Greenwood until it was after I graduated from somebody who was visiting from out of town and asked me where it was at, and I had no idea what they were talking about. I think it's incumbent, on us for the people that's here to continue to learn and tell this story. And for me, again, as a creator, I want everything I do to inspire people to, again, carry that torch and carry that passion and really find their purpose and their vision and their part of this new spirit of Greenwood, whether that's a shoe store or an online store or in tech, which Coop mentioned, and I say all the time, like if the massacre hadn't happened, Tulsa would be Silicon Valley. Like there's no way that much money over 100 years wouldn't have, evolved into that. So just thinking about what could have been, but what opportunity do we have today to carry on that legacy in a new, different way? So from the FILA project from Fire Little Africa, the music project that's happening with Stevie and Steph, and these new businesses that are coming up on North Tulsa, South Tulsa, East and West, everybody's carrying that torch. So it's going to look different, but I think it's going to be, pretty amazing, kind of seeing everybody take their spin on what the new Black Wall Street looks like.
That's incredible. Well, we are at our time. I cannot believe it flew by that quickly. But we appreciate not only all that you three do for Tulsa, but really what you're doing to put our community on your backs and carry us forward in ways that sometimes get overlooked. So thank you for that. And really for everyone watching, for more information on the Tulsa Race Massacre Centennial events, as well as our community at large, please visit tulsa2021.org. A big thank you again to Circle Cinema, to the Tulsa Film, Music, Arts, and Culture Office, as well as Sundance Film Festival for inviting us to be a part of the local programming here. We look forward to seeing you all in Tulsa. Remember to wear your mask and stay socially distant until you get that shot.